Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping into the book of James with a pretty tough question. If your life was the only evidence for your faith, what would the verdict be? Yeah, it's a big one. We're going to break down this idea that there's this unbreakable link between what you say you believe and, well, how you actually live your life.
All right, so let's get right into it. The source material kicks things off by, challenging something we all do. We're always worried about what's happening to us, right? External threats. But we're asked to just completely flip that script and rethink what the biggest danger in our lives actually is.
So what are the real dangers? You might think it's your job, your health, your bank account, maybe even other people. But the argument here is that nope, that's not it. The real danger, it's way, way closer than you think.
And here it is. This is such a radical idea, right? The most serious danger isn't what's being done to me, but what's being done by me. It's suggesting that, hey, instead of trying to control everything around you, maybe you should be way more focused on how you react to it all. It's our own behavior, our own choices that can do the most damage.
So really, it all comes down to this single point. Your behavior is the ultimate test. It's the bottom line. It's not about the words you say on a Sunday morning. It's about what you do on a Tuesday afternoon. That's where your real beliefs show up.
Okay, so that's the big idea. But what does it actually look like in practice? Well, the source gives us a really powerful and frankly pretty uncomfortable example to start with. Gossip, the power of our words.
And it starts with this question. What sin has caused more pain than any other? Now, your mind probably jumps to all the big, dramatic ones, right? But the answer we get is, well, it's something a lot more common, a lot more subtle, and maybe, just maybe, a lot more destructive. Yeah, it's gossip. And think about how it's described here, a form of betrayal. It's not just harmless talk. It's this silent, sneaky thing that undermines confidence, wrecks relationships. It's an injustice that you can't even see, but you can definitely feel.
And this isn't a new idea, not at all. The source points to this ancient proverb that says the words of a gossip are like wounds that go deep down inside you. It's not just about hurt feelings. The suggestion is that this stuff causes real physical stress and pain. It's a wound that goes deeper than a cut.
And to really drive this home, the lecturer gets personal. He shares that during one of the absolute lowest points in his life, we're talking bankruptcy, major hardship, the worst pain wasn't losing money. It was the gossip. The lies being spread by people he thought were his friends. That's what cut the deepest. Okay, so from gossip, the lecture moves to another, let's say, behavioral test of our faith. How we treat people based on how they look. Judging by appearances. And the source material paints this really vivid, almost uncomfortable picture. You've got two people who walk into your gathering. One is dressed to the nines, clearly wealthy. You rush over and say, hey, sit here in this great spot. Then a poor person comes in and you're like, you can stand over there, or, just sit on the floor by my feet. Oof, it's a brutal look at how quickly we show favoritism. And here's the kicker. This kind of thing, honoring the rich and influential, it just exposes the selfishness in all of us, doesn't it? The speaker basically says you can't be a spiritual snob and claim to have genuine faith. The two things just don't go together. Your actions are screaming something different from your words.
And this isn't just about individual interactions. The lecture connects this to a much bigger problem. It pulls in this quote that argues the biggest problem in the US is this growing loss of the concept of justice in people's hearts and minds. So that little act of favoritism in a room, it's a symptom of a much larger disease in society. So if these are the behaviors, what's the standard? How are they measured? Well, according to the source, it's a pretty stark, all-or-nothing kind of deal. There's really no wiggle room.
It all centers on what's called the royal law. Love your neighbor as yourself. Simple, right? But it's called the royal law for a reason. It comes from the king and it kind of governs everything else. If you can nail this one, you've pretty much got the spirit of the whole thing.
But here's where it gets really tough. The law isn't like a 10-question quiz where you can get 9 right and still pass. It's more like a single pane of glass. If you break it in one tiny spot, the whole thing is broken. Break one point and you're guilty of breaking all of it. You're just a lawbreaker. End of story.
And to make this crystal clear, the speaker uses this incredible analogy. Imagine you're hanging over a cliff, held up by a chain with, say, 10 links. How many of those links have to break for you to fall? Just one, right? It doesn't matter how strong the other 9 are. One weak link and the whole thing fails. That's the idea here.
Okay, so with a standard that high, that impossible, really,
You'd think the takeaway would be, well, we're all doomed. But that's not where the lecture goes. It makes this beautiful pivot away from judgment and toward mercy and what a real living faith actually looks like.
And it's all wrapped up in this amazing story. There's this preacher who confronts a very talented singer, Charlotte Elliott. He basically tells her, your talent is great, but it's worthless unless you use it for something bigger. She's offended, of course, but his words just stick with her. They won't let her go. And in the middle of the night, around 2 a.m., she has this complete turnaround. She sits down and writes one of the most famous hymns ever, Just As I Am. And you see how that's the perfect answer to the broken chain problem, right? The whole point is that you don't come to God because you're perfect. You come exactly as you are, broken chain and all, relying on mercy, not on your own good deeds.
And this really gets to the heart of the whole lecture. Your life is the strongest defense of your faith. The idea isn't that good works save you, not at all. It's that a genuine faith, a living faith, will always produce them. It's like an apple tree. It doesn't try to make apples, it just does. If there's no fruit, you have to wonder if the tree is even alive. Faith proves itself by what it does. So we're left with this one final question to chew on, and it brings everything right back to us. If faith is what you do, what is your life saying?